I'm Billy Cohen, Afar's editorial director, and welcome to View from Afar, a podcast that spotlights the people and the ideas shaping the future of travel. And in this special series, I'm coming to you live from the floor of IPW, the annual travel conference organized by the U.S. Travel Association to share the best of America with the rest of the world. This year, the conference is held in Chicago, and it's an interesting year to be talking about the United States. In March of 2025, data from the World Travel and Tourism Council showed that international visits to the U.S. had decreased, resulting in an estimated $12 billion loss in tourism revenue. At the same time, the country is gearing up for America's 250th anniversary, and the energy is palpable. So at IPW, my colleague Michelle Barron and I sat down with travel industry CEOs to bring you the biggest conference news and insights, and to share what's on the horizon for America's 250th birthday. You'll hear each of those conversations over the following week. In this episode, I'm thrilled to catch up with Helen Hill, President and CEO of Explore Charleston. Helen has led the Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau for decades and was recently selected to join the executive board of the U.S. Travel Association, giving her the opportunity to think both locally and nationally about tourism engagement and promotion. She's been credited with transforming Charleston into a highly sought-after international tourism destination and is in the unique position to discuss how formerly under-the-radar locales can successfully stake a spot on the global travel map. Welcome, Helen. Thank you so much for joining us.
It is my honor to be here.
So I do want to just jump right into some amazing success that you guys just released a report on. Explore Charleston had a report that showed that tourism in the city hit amazing new heights in 2024. You broke records with the number of hotel nights sold and a new record of the number of passengers who are flying into the city, as well as the economic impact of tourism on the city. So that's amazing. Why do you think Charleston has had such success in capturing the imagination of its visitors and of potential visitors?
Well, it's clear that Charleston, South Carolina is sort of having a moment in our 350-year history. You know, Charleston was founded back in 1670, and our team says that our best 20 years is ahead of us. And I think this economic impact report was a wonderful sign, because the thing that we're probably the most proud of is that we had higher yield visits. So it wasn't about increasing the number of people. It was about increasing the opportunities that tourism brings to the community.
Oh, what were like the magic levers that you pulled to make this all come together?
Well, I really give the credit to our beautiful properties. If you think about the new opportunities that we have for luxury accommodations in Charleston, we're getting ready to open the Cooper Hotel, which is beautiful on the Charleston Harbor, which will be particularly fun as we approach America 250, as well as we have a new Four Seasons coming. And we've just really been able to make an impact in that luxury space.
Yeah. So you said, I'm going to get back to America 250. Thanks for bringing that up. But you said your team had discussed that Charleston's having a moment, but I feel like that moment has been building for a long time. How did you get there? What were some of the either projects or storytelling or campaigns that you put out to help that coalesce?
Well, I would really give it credit to two things. The first was deciding to get into the air service development business. And we realized about 2010 that if we didn't actively participate in opening access, that we were going to be a drive community. And so we've been able to dramatically increase the number of seats available in and out of Charleston. And that's been amazing, particularly if you think about the Northeast Corridor. So today, where if you'd ask us back in 2010, our number one place that we got visitors was from North Carolina, and now it's New York.
And how that process, that must require a lot of conversations and coordinating with a lot of partners. What did you learn from that process that other DMOs and similarly formerly drive destinations could use?
I think that the opportunity to open new markets has been really fun. And in terms of the being able to do advertising and marketing in those communities where there's a direct route. And just if you think about the people have limited time today and nobody wants to spend all their time in an airport. And if you can have a nonstop market, that has been one of our greatest successes. And today we've got 65 nonstop 65 destinations, which has been great. But the second thing, we made a strategic decision to really advertise and promote who Charleston really is, not who we wish we were. And all of our history is not beautiful, but we are finding a way to tell that story in a way that is interesting because it's the real story. We just opened the International African American Museum last year. We're celebrating the first year.
Right.
And it's a difficult story to tell, but it's important that in today's world that we tell that story.
So do you find that adding those diverse and different perspective types of stories to the experience of Charleston, what kind of effect is that having on visitation?
I think that travelers today are looking for that kind of narrative that is authentic. And I know that's a really overused word, but Charleston has such deep history, particularly like, for example, we talk about food and sometimes we laugh and say that we're probably not eating anything different than I ate growing up. We just talk about it a lot different. But because of our rich agricultural history and our rich seafood, I mean, you really have something special to talk about. And if you look at the Gullah Geechee heritage and that food, you know, we kind of grew up eating that and now we can share that with the world, with some of our most celebrated chefs.
You can name it. And in the naming of it,
exactly
it honors
right.
and celebrates in a different
well,
way.
and part two of that, I think, was I said that next 20 years we really think is going to be the best. Is I know that everything that we've seen, that's why what Afar is doing is so critically important to storytelling, is that people are interested in arts and culture. They're interested in really getting to know and understand a place. And the only way you can do that is by telling great stories. And that's what we hope to do and build on as we move ahead.
And how do you get visitors in concrete ways to get to interact with that culture, with those different stories?
Well, there's so much to see and do as it relates to historic attractions. Today, we forget that those folks were part of 13 colonies and they were subjects, right? And to a king. And the fact that they were brave, and now democracy is really something that's spread throughout the world. And it started here. And Charleston was one of the 4 major cities in the United States in the 13 colonies at that time, and the only southern city.
Right.
And because we had such a strategic port, it was really important to commerce. And, you know, those are the kind of attractions, if you think about the 250 that we're so excited about, it's a great place to see how America started because those sites are still there and you can still enjoy them.
So how are you planning for America 250? It sounds like you'll do things at those sites. Are there other celebrations? Can you tell us about what you have planned?
Yes. Well, we're really excited because we have America's first museum, the Charleston Museum, and that's the great place to start telling the story.
Wait, the Charleston, I'm going to interrupt. I'm sorry. Charleston Museum is the first American
museum.
It's
the oldest museum in the United States.
How old?
Yeah. Yep. It was founded in 1773.
Oh my goodness.
And they have a long history and a deep history in telling this Revolutionary War story and how Charleston was pivotal in that battle. And again, I think that in today's world, it's hard for us to imagine that democracy, which is literally around the world, was a new idea. And it's fun for us because as it relates to the Charleston Museum, they're telling that authentic story. And then you can go out into the community and actually see the site. One of my favorite is the old Exchange building, which is actually a building that has been in continuous use since that time. And a lot of people don't know Charleston. We had our own tea party, similar to the Boston Tea Party. The only difference is we didn't throw our tea in the harbor. We actually hid it at the old Exchange and then sold it later to help the Patriots. So it's really fun.
I love that. Capitalism for good.
That's exactly right. A lot of folks think about Charleston and they think about Civil War history, right? The first shots of the Civil War. But our story as it relates to the Revolutionary War is very deep. And I don't know if you've seen a palmetto tree, but it's on the state flag of South Carolina. But they actually built a fort of palmetto logs. And what the British didn't know is that palmetto logs are very spongy. And when those cannonballs were hitting the palmetto log, they would actually lodge, right? And so the folks on the United States side for America were able to do a lot of damage to the British ships where the incoming fire was absorbed by those palmetto logs.
Smart.
And that you can still go to that beautiful fort and see that fort today.
You mentioned that Charleston has, like a lot of the country in the South, has a complex history. Have you found that you've had to address the narrative or change some of the ways that you're telling some of these stories over time? And what was that like as the head of tourism?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that happened in Charleston is we laugh and say we decided to leave the Moonlight and Magnolias narrative in the past because it really wasn't true. We knew that the real story is way more interesting and is so much more educational and is so much more inspiring to the future of our country is to tell the authentic story. So we were brave and we decided to tell the real story. And, everyone wishes for a more perfect past. And when we opened the African American Museum at the site of Gadsden's Wharf, where probably 3/4 of the slaves that were brought into the United States were brought in, it's a painful story to tell, but it's an important story to tell as we look toward the future of our country. And another reason to celebrate and tell the story of the American Revolution, because that's what they were doing, is they wanted something different than to be one of the 13 colonies. They were looking for something different. And I think it's more important than ever that we tell those inspiring stories.
Yeah, and Charleston's not the only one. Obviously, all over we're going through that. But did you draw on or exchange conversations and strategies with other locations that had gone through this?
I grew up in Charleston, and I laugh and tell people that you don't know Charleston is different until you go away. Charleston is a very cosmopolitan, very small community. Like, I didn't realize that when you went away that sometimes other people didn't have a friend who was a different color or different faith. And you've heard Charleston called the Holy City because of the number of churches and synagogues. We have the oldest synagogue in the United States in Charleston. And there was always freedom of worship. And that was an important step for our community. So we've always had that. And then you might remember we had the Mother Emanuel tragedy in Charleston, where 9 parishioners were killed in the oldest African-American Episcopal church in Charleston. And it was such a learning experience for our team. We're actually coming up on the 10-year anniversary of Mother Emanuel. We're about to finish a fantastic memorial for the church and for those folks who lost their lives. But their story is inspiring because they are the ones who very quickly forgave the killer. But at the same time, they called the rest of us to reconciliation. The Lord requires us to forgive, but reconciliation takes work. It really is about telling the story. And that's why I'm excited to partner with AFAR as we look forward to telling those stories, because that's what inspires people. That's what inspires people to act.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's next for us.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Well, what is your hope for the future of Charleston's tourism industry? Where is it in 10 years or 20?
We really are excited about tourism being the way to help people connect, because the world gets a lot smaller when you know people. And I love the fact that when you get to meet someone who may be different than you, and perhaps you break bread over a delicious meal, it is the way that the world's going to become much smaller and a better place, because we're going to know each other.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to like people that you have an opportunity to get to know.
Yeah. You mentioned food, so I have to ask, what are your favorite, let's say, off the beaten path places? I've told people before.
On the tourist board, I can't give you my favorites. I will tell you that my new real favorite thing right now is, because of what season we're in, is that one of the things that happens in South Carolina specifically, because of our deep agricultural traditions, is that we're still the place of the farmer's market and getting to have the best local produce. It has been really fun. I'm actually sad that I'm not home right now to enjoy some.
What would you pick up at the farmer's market?
Right now, I would really be enjoying strawberries and all the fresh lettuces, and particularly the ones that are grown out at Wamalaw Island.
Oh my God.
Waiting on tomatoes. Ready for some tomatoes. We love some heirloom tomatoes.
Okay, you have to stay diplomatic, so you can't pick favorites. But for the general traveler, what are some off the beaten path experiences that you'd recommend? We've talked about a lot of the real trademark, signature experiences and stories of Charleston. What else?
Well, right now, that one of the things particularly is it relates back to the America 250 is we had 4 signers of the Declaration of Independence, and they're all tied into one of the particular corridors that I love is the 61 corridor, where you have Drayton Hall, Middleton Place and Gardens, and Magnolia. And each one of those has got a unique tie in to the revolution. And one of the things that I love about each one of those places is they celebrate, again, telling those stories in a way that hasn't been told told before. There are a lot of good restaurants on the way out there that you can stop and get a little bit of local seafood or a little fresh produce. So it's always fun.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure to be
President
here.
And CEO of Explore Charleston. We always love talking to you. Thank you so much.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
Thanks for joining this episode of View from Afar. In the show notes, you'll find links to the topics we talked about, Explore Charleston's website and social handles, and links to some of our recent Charleston coverage. And be sure to follow along this week to hear more interviews with industry experts. You can find more Views from Afar on afar.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're at Afar Media. If you enjoyed today's exploration, I hope you'll come back for more great interviews. Subscribing always makes that easy. And be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast platforms. It helps other travelers find it. This has been View from Afar, a production of Afar Media. The podcast is produced by Aislinn Green and Nikki Galtalind, with assistance from Michelle Barron and Billy Cohen. Music composition from Epidemic Sound. This podcast is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to their other fine shows, like Culture Kids and the Explorers Podcast.